Hi guys, James here from the Mad Tin Hatter blog. I've had an opportunity, like 9 months after moving into my house, to clear out my garage, which has given me a nice space in order to set up my table. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how the light is in here. It seems a bit dull to me, but it looks okay on the film, so we'll give it a bash. So what I thought I'd do is I'd spend the day just basically setting out my collection, because it's been over a year now since I've had a chance to do it. Previously I've set out the whole collection on one table, but I'm getting to the point now where it doesn't all fit. So, until I can get some boards for this table and turn it into a nice little gaming bunker for myself, I have laid out my usual felt tablecloth, and I thought I'd start off with my armour collection. So this is my British and Polish and some Canadian armour, and I'll just go through it bit by bit, and you'll have to bear with me because, as usual, I don't have any sort of stabilised camera mount, so I'm just having to hold it, and hopefully the sound comes through okay. So, we have, starting off in front of me, I've written all this stuff down so as I don't get mixed up again, and I'm just noticing that I've forgotten to find one of the fuel trailers for a Churchill. Never mind, I'll just pause and fix that. Right, sorted. Apologies for that, the completionist in me wouldn't let me do this video without everything being out. So, yeah, starting at the front here, leading the way, as they so often would have done in Normandy, again, apologies, I have Armour Vehicles Royal Engineers from the 5th Assault Regiment, Royal Engineers, which is part of the 1st Assault Brigade, which is part of the 79th Armoured Division. So I have now this lovely set, which I got from, I think it's S&S Models, a conversion kit for the PSC, the Plastic Soldier Company Churchills. So I have a SPG Churchill, which I have made so that the bridge is removable. I've also done some work with magnets and stuff so that the bridge can be taken off, and the tank then goes onto a normal sized large Flames of War base and can be used normally on the table after that. We've got a nice little Churchill fascine layer, which again is a conversion kit from S&S Models, and again magnetised so that the whole thing comes off and can be used normally. We have a couple of normal, these are Battlefront AVs RE, and then I have a D7 armoured dozer, which I have decaled up as being part of 149th Assault Park Squadron, 79th Armoured Division. However, I think for Totalies, which is the battle I'm doing, the armoured dozers might actually have come from the Field Park Squadrons of the Royal Engineers as part of the infantry divisions. It's something I've really not been able to clarify. I've checked quite a few different sources, and I think other than getting the war diaries for the individual Field Park Company that was attached to 51st Highland Division, I might not actually be able to define that easily. So, all my various Churchill models, just fix that one. There we go. Backing these guys up, I've got a couple of flails. These are Sherman Crabs, and these are from the 22nd Dragoons, which were part of 30th Armoured Brigade, which was also part of the 79th Armoured Division. So I've got the 2 flails here and the command vehicle behind them. So those 3 vehicles make up one unit. I was very kindly gifted another couple of flails, which I still have to build. Those are in the queue. They're really nice models, they're just a bit delicate with all the extra gubbins that they have on them. Behind these guys I've got my Crocs, 6 of them. I've well documented why I've ended up with 6 of these things, but that's just being a war gamer, I'm afraid. So the crocodiles are from 141 Royal Armoured Corps, which was actually part of 31st Armoured Brigade, or Tank Brigade it might be, because they're Churchills. And these weren't part of 79th Armoured Division. At this time they were brigaded with a normal Churchill brigade. Later on I think they then switched over to the 79th Armoured, but these guys are actually marked up as 31st Armoured Brigade tanks, so they're marked up as 141 Royal Armoured Corps with just the brigade markings, they don't have the 79th Armoured Division markings on them. Alright, so that's my engineering component. I've also put on the table, this might be a little bit arguable because they're not tanks. They are armoured, but they're actually Royal Canadian Artillery. So these guys are from 6th Anti-Tank Regiment, Royal Canadian Artillery, which were the corps level anti-tank regiment of the 2nd Canadian Corps. And as far as I can see, these guys contributed a battery or two to the 51st Highland Division during the night advance. And the reason they have armoured turrets on them, which might seem really wrong, is that I have found a War Diary entry for this unit which said that prior to the Totalize operation starting, they received orders to weld armoured turrets onto the top of their M10s. So that's what I did. I've actually found some pictures of them. They're not particularly distinct pictures, but you can definitely see that the M10s have got roofs on them for this operation. So I went with Battlefront armoured roofs. They might not have been actually as engineered as this. I suspect they might just have been a steel plate welded on struts over the top of the turret. But I've went with this just now. The command vehicle is the one that doesn't have a fully camouflaged up turret. I might revisit the camo on these because the top of the turrets looks a bit bare, but I'm fairly happy with them as they are. Yeah, so these are 3-inch armed M10s, and some of the sources that I've got for Totalize actually say that these had 17-pounders, so they would have been the M10Cs. But I did a little bit more digging after I had finished them, sadly, and I discovered a reference again to the unit's war diary. That a lot of the Canadian units' war diaries are actually online, unlike the British ones, which you have to pay to get, which just kind of makes a political statement in of itself. So the Canadian war diaries are online, and this particular unit had an entry for about 3 weeks after Totalize that said, "Today we received our first 17-pounder armed M10." So to me that's fairly categoric evidence that they didn't have 17-pounders prior to Totalize. So I took the 17-pounders off these and replaced them with 3-inch guns. In the process I damaged 2 of the 17-pounder barrels, so I had to buy some more to get the 17-pounder, to get 3-inch barrels and the 17-pounder barrels that I needed to fix. And anyway, long story short, I ended up with 12 of the bloody things because I also got a box to get the armoured roofs. So it turned out to be a little bit of a rabbit hole that I got myself down, but never mind. Behind these guys I have 3 troops, which is actually just the way that the Polish armoured operated. So these guys are a squadron, 24th Polish Lancers. I'm not going to insult the Poles by attempting to pronounce their own language because I just can't. But they're part of 10th Armoured Cavalry Brigade of the 1st Polish Armoured Division, and I have tried to do these as of the 8th of August 1944, which is the first day of combat in Normandy and the first full day of the Totalized battle. It was the morning after the night attack, the midday kind of period that these guys put in a very brave a very brave attack against German positions, which unfortunately by then had stabilised and had started to organise, so they didn't get particularly far. But I really enjoyed working in these. You'll see that I've tried to standardise the stowage layout, as the Poles were really famous for having a kind of standard layout of stowage on their tanks, but some of them are a bit different with sandbags and stuff, and that's because these were the old open fire Shermans that I had got, and a lot of them were second hand and needed a bit of work to save them because they weren't very well put together. So those that had too much damage on them got the sandbag treatment just to cover up the damage to the front. I've took a little bit of liberty with these. You'll see that I've gone with pennants on them. I do have some pictures of Polish 1st Armoured Division tanks with pennants. I have gone with the early war cavalry pennants, and basically where it's like a pennant per squadron, I've just done a pennant per troop. So we've got the command guy here with 2 pennants, the kind of troop, the squadron pennant, and then a Polish pennant, and then the other troop leaders have all got coloured pennants as well. When I did these, I miscounted slightly and I had some spares, so I've actually got 2 M1A1 Shermans, which I think only the British, I want to say 27th Armoured, but it might not have been. One of the British Armour Brigades had M1A1s. I don't know if it was the 27th now. It'll come back to me later when I've finished recording, no doubt. I've also got 2 spare Polish M4A1s, M4A4s, so that's just a random little troop. No doubt I'll find some use for them at some point. And then, if I switch over to the other side, I'll just stop and start again. Here we go. This collection here, for those of you who've watched my previous videos and followed my blog, should be a bit familiar. These are my guys from my grandfather's regiment, and that's C Squadron plus HQ elements, so elements of HQ Squadron, 144 Royal Armoured Corps, 33rd Armour Brigade, as of the 7th of August 1944. So I've got a full squadron worth of tanks here. I've got the Recce Stuarts, a couple of Humber scout cars which were used as liaison units, an ARV, I always make that mistake, an armoured recovery vehicle, which was a conversion from a turretless M4A4 that I had, and then behind that we've got the anti-aircraft tanks, 2 Crusader anti-aircraft tanks. So these are all, other than a couple of the Fireflies, I think these are all resin and metal Battlefront kits. No one else makes plastic M4s, just plain M4s at the moment. I had asked Battlefront recently if they had any plans to, and the response was a Sherman's a Sherman, which is a fucking, excuse me, is an absolutely nonsense response, and one I would expect to get a better answer to from a company. But a Sherman is not just a Sherman. It's important to be particular, at least it is to me. So I've got Squadron HQ, Scouts, M3A1 Stuarts. I should probably have trimmed the bolts off of these because they're the kind of earlier desert versions, and I think the later ones were a bit more streamlined. We've got 1 troop of 4 here with a Firefly and 3 normal 75mm Shermans, another troop of 4, another troop of 4, and another troop of 4. And the turret numbers are all correct as per the way that the numbering system worked. I've had mixed information about the tactical sign, the yellow circle. I've read many sources which categorically say that they did not use these coloured tactical signs. They don't show up on many pictures, but I was randomly watching the telly one day in between painting, and I looked up to see a couple of this regiment's tanks drive past the screen. They were from A Squadron, I think, and they had tactical markings on the side of the hull, and it was quite clear. I could tell that from the armour service marking and the brigade marking on the front of the tank that it was this regiment, and then the tank drove past the camera and you could see the tactical markings. So I'm a bit kind of iffy as to whether I should put them on. I think I might continue and do all of them. I've still got a little bit of work to do because you can see, if you look closely, like this one here, I've got different style markings, and the yellow markings are the way I want to go. The yellow and black ones just aren't yellow enough. I've got a few throughout, spread throughout to replace still. But generally, this tank unit, I'm happy that I've done it. Unhappy with the painting. I think I didn't paint them all close enough together, so the styles vary. The basing varies. Some of the decals vary. I just want to, at some point, go back over the whole lot again and bring them all up to the same standard. I don't think I'll repaint them, probably just dry brush and highlight and stuff, but I am proud that I've managed to do this. This was my little memorial to my grandfather, Trooper Hurst, who was a Sherman tank driver with this regiment and who took part in Totalise. So I'll just do a little bit of a complicated technical zoom out, which consists of me standing up. There we go. And if I wander around here, apologies, shaky cam, that'll give you my whole armour collection. Now I'll also add that I have units which aren't built yet. I've got the other two Sherman Crabs which I mentioned. I've got some stuff to do for the Poles. I've got their Stuarts to do. I've got an armoured recovery vehicle for them. I've got their anti-aircraft tanks to do. I've also got plans to do a Canadian formation, a squadron of Canadian Shermans, which will be M4A3s or M4A2s I think, and they will be for the 2nd Canadian Armoured Brigade, and I think it's the Fort Garry Horse I'm going to do, so I've got plans to do a squadron of them at some point, which will give me the effective Sherman tank strength of a full armoured regiment, which would be quite cool. So yeah, stick with me, and at some point I'll get around to that. And I'm just spotting that the magnets on my tank there have failed because I've bumped the table. So yeah, that's me for now, folks. I'll have another video up shortly with my infantry and probably an artillery one as well. Thanks very much for watching. Sorry for the shaky cam.